Thank you, of course.
So I will also open up the floor for questions in a while. So if you have any questions, be prepared for the panel. The panel, which is very, very much welcomed here, is Antje Jackelén, Archbishop of Church of Sweden. Welcome. Najwa Kallass, the psychosocial expert from the Red Cross.
Hey.
Yes, hey. Andualem Boltena, also psychosocial expert, Church of Sweden. Welcome. Och Mikael Ribbenvik, you are Director of Operations at Migration Board of Migrationsverket and also Deputy Director of Migrationsverket. Welcome. It's great to have you here. We're going to talk about the need for psychosocial work. What is psychosocial work? Who needs psychosocial work? But we can also talk about other things. It's amazing, I think, to know that Swedish Church, together with their partners, Alliansen, have worked in many of the big refugee camps, not only in Africa, but also in the Middle East and other places in the world. And Red Cross and Rädda Barnen and the Church of Sweden have now started a cooperation in regard of psychosocial work, so that we take the experience that we have from other parts of the world and also use it here in the very special situation that we have in Europe at the moment, with the need that people have as they are fleeing from war and conflict. So I wanted to just the four of you to start off by saying something about that you picked up from the film in regard of the psychosocial work, and what did you think? Maybe if you wanted to start, Antje.
Okay.
I think we might have just to put the microphones closer to us and be able to.
This one. Should I take this one?
Yeah, we can. Yeah, we can maybe try.
Oh, we can.
Just grab a microphone.
Is this on?
Yep.
No.
Nope. Then we just take this one.
Yeah.
We just have to use this one.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is working. Okay.
Microphones
Finally.
always a challenge.
Well, thank you, and it sure is a beautiful film that took me through a number of different feelings, and where you find yourself laughing, and you find yourself crying. And I remember very well, I visited the refugee camp Satari in December, which is in Jordan on the Syrian border. And that was exactly the feeling I had when I was there. There were moments when I wanted to dance with them, and there were moments when I literally cried. Yes. And why is that? Well, one of the reasons was that what we did in Satari was also visiting or looking at the work that the Lutheran World Federation is doing with psychosocial support, and creating an oasis of peace, an island of normalcy in this environment, and to see how much that means. Because what it does, it appeals to human beings both with their trauma, but also with these healing capacities that are in there, and especially focusing on children and young people. It was so obvious that giving them this experience of peace, experience of joy, experience of creativity, that was something that would mean a lot to themselves, of course, and their peers, but that would also mean a lot to their families, to the adults, and would actually create a sense of social cohesion in a chaotic world. So it's very clear to me that psychosocial support is not anything that you can think of, okay, first we need all the basic things in place, and then if we get some resources over, then we can do this also, because it's sort of doing the little extra. No, it's really at the basis.
Thank you so much. Najwa, would you like to continue?
First, thanks for the valuable work. It's really like amazing. But what I saw in this movie, it's two main points. The first one, when it's come to psychosocial support and how we present the psychosocial support, usually we have a challenge because some people think it's really, really simple, that just to give a smile, maybe welcome them in the airport. Or it's like really difficult and you have to be in a clinic and have a music background and start to tell your story. So it's like always extreme impression about it. And you show in the movie really the reality of the psychosocial support. Because like it's the daily life. It's just to empower the people, to help them. The skills is already there. They have their own skills, but just we need to empower. In this difficult situation, sometimes you miss your skills or you need to have kind of refreshment for it. And that's exactly what Svenska kyrkan or other humanitarian organization did in this camp or in many other camps. The other point is about the similarity, or like I worked in Middle East for many, many years, and I'm Syrian myself. I'm an expert in that field, but also I became a refugee myself. So when I heard their stories, it was like part of my dialogue also. And it's part of many other stories I heard and I still hear every day. So that's why it's really meaningful how you show that. And it was very much real, not just like a movie.
Thank you.
To me, I want to refer to the film. I also want to admit I saw it 4 times because I was in the process. So if you see the movie, yes.
Yeah, you work for the Church of Sweden as the psychosocial expert. So it's great that we have had your support.
Thank you. So the film is so engaging. It shows so much high peaks of emotions. The psychosocial aspect in the film, to just mention a few. The first one is actually where Jackson decides to stay around with the family. And he said it's not about himself, and the sisters and other kids needed his support. So that the absence of the mother and the father had to be filled in, and that gap needed someone's support. And that's not an easy job to do. I have a son, and I have my fatherhood role that I play. And taking that and having the mother role, it's not an easy stuff to do. It's tough. Another one that you could mention is Clementine. And she mentioned the reason why she loved her husband is because he loves and he respects the children and he takes care of them. That's psychosocial support. It's nothing abstract and nothing far from people's daily life. And there is more we could mention, but maybe I should give the chance to my colleagues here.
Oh, Michael, thank you. Yeah, but what did you pick up in the film, and where you think there can be meaningful lessons or ideas or thoughts regarding psychosocial work, particularly in the situation that we are in now? But you're welcome to give your comments.
Thank you. Well, I thought it was a great film, and I think some of the main points here is first of all, we refer as people as refugees. They are refugees. Human being is a refugee, but they're really human beings, right? And we have an etiquette, and what we can see from the film is that people go on to love or acquire love sometimes, or be angry or hopelessness, and they're always human beings, and they are in a situation. They are not refugees. They are people in need of refuge, which is a great difference, I think. I traveled to many refugee camps around the world, also in Africa. I also worked with the resettlement, as we saw a bit of the US resettlement program here, which is very slow. The Swedish one is much faster. And I think it's a very important point to make, that even though the resettlement schemes cannot solve the refugee crisis in the world, it's a very important work to do, because there are, as we saw, women that are alone and women that are in risk. We particularly target women at risk in our resettlement scheme, because sometimes you could be in the same position as you fled from, and this is particularly in many of the camps that we saw here. There's not security always, and sometimes the only way could be to get a resettlement place, but as we see, that could take a long time. And I also would like to say very shortly that sometimes we hear that resettlement is a drop in the ocean. It's we hear about 60 million refugees or internally displaced persons, and it's a drop in the ocean. And just let me make a comparison, that we are very glad to jump into planes when there's an earthquake, and we have dogs and we have specialists and everything, and perhaps they could extract 9 or 10 people from that earthquake. And everybody thinks that's a good idea. But when we're talking about refugees, suddenly this drop in the ocean argument arrives. I don't understand it. Every life counts.
So, Mikael, that is particularly in regard of the quota system. I think, that Sweden, you are very much pro a quota system. We're going to come back to that maybe a little bit later and stay with the psychosocial worker. Do you want to come in there, Andy?
Yes, actually, one more point I would like to mention is where Deka mentioned that after she took the courses, she said the course was talking to herself. And that was actually probably where she decided to move on to reach out to others. And we had the opportunity where she was assisting, for example, a woman who experienced rape and sexual violence. And she was providing assistance to this lady and others. So psychosocial support is just enabling these people to realize what's in them and be able to reach to others, because the need is immense, as you can see.
Najwa, would you like to tell us something about the reason for why the Red Cross and Rädda Barnen and Swedish Church have now decided to work together here in Sweden in regard to psychosocial support?
Yes, of course. Actually, it started last year. First, each organization of this working in psychosocial support, and they have different experiences nationally and internationally. The point that when it's come to Sweden and the situation with the refugees and the asylum seekers, we face the same needs. All of us start to discuss that, okay, we need to respond in this way, we need kind of capacity building, we need to do psychosocial support. And then if you review or if you see what we have as a tools, actually there's a lot of great tools for psychosocial support, but there's no one specific for asylum seekers and refugees. And that's what we are trying to do together. It's to answer or to respond to these needs. For example, the psychological first aid, it's focusing on trauma. But in this situation, we need to talk more about cultural sensitivity, because that's part of the psychosocial support. We all the time repeating integration. Okay, the integration, it's not something that's drinking water. You need to make it gradually. So to make that, we need to understand other cultures and to start to present our culture in Sweden. So to have that balance, we need to work more, and that's one of the main goals, is to filling these gaps and to learn and help the volunteers to learn about these topics. Also, the other point is to answer a common question maybe I faced myself every day and all organizations facing every day, what it's mean to be asylum seeker. And when I read the invitation of the film, I decide to bring a tree to explain to you something. It's not a really tree, of course, but it's just like that. Here, it's something here. The point that when we face the question, what it's mean to be asylum seeker, so simply the answer is like that. All the asylum seekers and refugees is like trees. in their countries. They have flowers and fruits and many other good things. When you seek as asylum and the situation forces you to go out, it's like someone just turn you up and down and your roots is flying. And you have a lot of concerns. Ask who we are, what we are doing, where is the future. If I integrate, I lose my identity, or no, I can keep both. So all these questions we facing every day. And what we are doing as the 3 organizations together is just to tell that it's still a tree. We don't have to change it. We just have to help them to back to soil again, to provide water, to provide psychosocial support and normal life. They have to be themselves. We just help them to be themselves and they'll give us flowers again.
Lovely.
So that's it.
Antje, when I started to work with this film, of course I had read about the psychosocial work, but I came to understand more about it. But there was a question also always in the back of our mind, and I think we have that always as filmmakers. But you know, when you go in a person's life, for example, psychosocial work, what are the risks? Can you do harm, and how do we avoid to do harm from your perspective?
Well, whenever you interact with people, you can do harm. The risk is there every day, but yet that usually doesn't make us abstain from interacting with people. So things can go wrong in that situation as well. Of course, that's, and you have to acknowledge that. But that's not an excuse for being sloppy or not trying to care. And that's one of the reasons why we have taken this initiative about, so to speak, from Church of Sweden Horizon to bring home the experiences we have made with our psychosocial support in other countries and saying, how can we use that now at home in 2 respects. Both for the people who are new in our country, but also for our own staff and our volunteers. Because as you all know, last fall we had so many people, so many volunteers stepping up and saying, yes, we are going to help, we are going to help. That's wonderful. But of course, at the same time we thought, okay, this is probably not going to last. And many of those volunteers will after a while ask, for how long can we really do this? And those who are in charge will ask, well, how do I get a sustainable organization of voluntary work? And how do I avoid that our volunteers and our staff get burned out? Or that they sort of suffer a secondary traumatization. That is, if you listen to stories and are not able to pick up the bright sides, but really are struck by the hurt, then of course you can bear a secondary trauma, and then probably you're not being able to give much of, to give this enabling atmosphere. I think it's a lot about enabling and empowerment. So that was one of the, and it was these 2 reasons for people who are new, but also for those who want to help. And one of the results is these flyers. I can just show one, supporting people in refugee situations, how to take care of yourself, self-care, or meeting people in refugee situations, how to provide proper support. And there's a 3rd one, if you are new in Sweden, how to help yourself and others. I think it's just this little formulation, how to help yourself and others. I mean, in our country, we have often had this propensity at saying, okay, these are the helpers, and these are the ones who need help. And if you're new in our country, we basically don't, now I'm overdoing it, but we don't ask that much, what really do you bring of experiences? What can we learn from you? We almost at the end saying, okay, now we are going to teach you how to brush your teeth in a Swedish way, sort of thing. But realizing that these are human beings who can cope, or who have coped with a lot of things that we as normal Swedes haven't even been dreaming of. So how can we create an atmosphere where they can heal if they need to heal, and at the same time where they can be part also in an empowering and enabling process for themselves, for other people. I think that's part of the key to creating something that actually makes a huge difference. And by the way, these, of course, not only in English, they're also in Arabic and Swedish.
5 different languages, actually.
So
5 different languages.
It's our new baby.
You maybe want to say more about the baby?
Yeah, actually, the posters and the flyers, it was kind of like piloting for the partnership together. So it's the first product we have done together, Röda Korset, Svenska, kyrkan, and Röda Korset. And the next step now, it will be capacity building in 2 ways, as I mentioned. The first one, that we will have jointly teams together, like psychosocial support response teams. We'll start with 3 different teams, south, north, and middle of Sweden. And then in parallel, we will build these working sheets to fill the gaps I talked about. So one of the working sheets, it's 10 different topics, actually. One is cultural sensitivity. The other one, how to work with the groups. The third one is term of reference for volunteers and how to take care of yourself. Because we found that in all field visits we are doing, that's actually the question is how to put a limit, how to say no sometime. So the volunteers facing this problem all the time, or it's a challenge for them. They can't say no, and so we need to protect them also, and we need to think how to use the resources we have. Because of that, it's named community-based psychosocial support. It's depend on the local community.
Community-based psychosocial work. Because I want to come back to you, Mikael, in a moment, because one of the thoughts, I'm actually going to ask Andy first, and then I come back to you. Sorry, because there is this maybe thought that once you have lost everything, which many of these people have done, they have lost all the belongings, and maybe they've been deeply hurt, but there's still this capacity of actually. There are leaders in the community. Can you say something about the how you identify and how you see the capacity within a community when you go into in a crisis situation?
Yes, actually, the first thing is that their support structure, the stability that's around them is once washed away, and there is nowhere to go, nothing to do. So they find themselves and they make a decision. All we have is gone. What can we do? So in those situations, you always find active people, and the beauty of trying to find who can be actually of lending hands is to, of course, work with local partners and having access to local actors. So through this channel we have certain set criteria, of course, and ourselves we would be there as early as possible to be able to screen and work with the local communities. So we try to gather information and try to identify relevant people that are possibly willing to walk the walk with us, and that we also see us being part of the activity they would like to do. So it's a mutual two-way communication taking place, and dialogues take place. Having these voices collected, those voices give us who is going to work with us and who allows us to be partners in the community.
Not coming in with all the resources, but partners in building capacity again. Mikael, when you hear this, looking at the situation now, can you work like this within Migrationsverket, or are you working like this, or can you learn things from what you hear here now? Because they are both people in in the Swedish society who might be scared, or they might be tired, and they have helped a lot, and you have helpers or employees at Migrationsverket who might not be able to deal. Do you hear something here that you can pick up on that would be of help?
Oh yes, and not only pick up. I think that today when we have 180,000 people in our reception system, and we have 100,000 people in our asylum accommodation centers, where you live collectively, a lot of people in a small area. We have difficulties in having activities for everybody, and since there were so many people coming last fall, it's over 130,000 people just for 6 months. We have very long waiting times, very long handling times. And we're working with all that, but that's nothing we're going to solve overnight. So meanwhile, people are waiting for a very long time in substandard accommodation and with nothing to do, if we want to paint the picture dark. And we're understaffed, and my strategy here is actually to understaff the reception centers, because we don't have enough resources, and we need to get our decision making going. You know, you could do the other way around. We could have a massive staff in the reception centers, but then we would never make any decisions.
But are you involving the refugee, the asylum seekers? Can you do that in a more direct way, do you think?
Yeah, I think first of all,
in creating activities, finding a meaningful life.
Yeah.
Can I help you with that?
Yes, please, you can help me with that. Yeah. No, but we are working together with the Red Cross. We have a letter of intent, and I think we need the support of many organizations. We will also start a program for volunteers. Anyone that wants to help could help, because we are understaffed in that respect. I think that's very important because we do have a situation which is not good in the accommodation centers today, and we can't do it on our own. Just let me say one thing about the asylum seeker themselves. We had these kind of accommodation centers in the 90s, if you remember, the flyktingförläggning. We abolished that, and up until a few years ago, we had all asylum seekers living in their own apartments, which was a good thing, because then you could direct your own life. You could go up in the morning. You have your own times, and you have to
daily routine. And
your routine. Life. You have to go to the store. You can cook your own food, and institutions are not good for human beings. 3 years ago, we didn't get any more apartments, and people were coming in greater numbers. And then we started to go on this journey where we are now with the accommodation centers. So this is nothing we want to do. This is something we have to do. So what we're trying to do now is get back to at least where you can have your own kitchen, your own bathroom, and so on. But this is a very difficult task, because we don't have that kind of accommodations. But that's the main thing, to direct your own life. Not that lunch is between here, and this is breakfast, and we always serve brown food and with a lot of sauce and things like that.
But the good thing now, of course, is that there are organizations are willing to work together and are prepared to share their experience, and also see people as full of capacity, despite the fact that you are an asylum seeker. I know there's so much to say, but I think we shall open up the floor for 2 or 3 questions, and I take the 2 or 3 questions straight away, and then we let the panel answer. So if there's anybody who would like to ask a question, raise a hand. I'm sure there is. Yes, Desiree Petrus.
People having crisis, and I understand that people needs normalization after traumatic stress. I mean, people are very much need a normal situation where they have routines and so on. And when I look at these, I've been to also different camps in Jordan, for example, and northern Iraq. And when you see people there, it's all these hopeless. They don't have any hope for work, no other routines for anyone. They're just waiting for something. And that, of course, creates a lot of distraction and also a lot of despair. So when I see this camp, I would just want to ask you, Antje, what do you think? I mean, do the United Nations do whatever they can to make like he got a bicycle here, this Jackson, what's his name? Yeah, he got his bicycle. It's so easy, and he can start to create something for himself. And what could you do more in these kinds of camps, and also in Sweden, of course? What can we do more that people have a normal life? As I understand, in Denmark, we can have a lot of things to argue with them, but they have like routines for language courses, that have to do some social services, or they have to make their own clean everything and so on. So what can we do more of routines? Because that is very, very important for people to have a routine.
Idea about how to normalize life. Do we have another question here? There's one for the panel. Is there anybody else? Okay, well, let the panel start. It was directed to you first, Antje, so you can start off, and then we let the others fill in.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I'm certainly not the right person to answer the question whether the FN does enough or not. That's, I think, up to other people to respond. But I mean, what I see is there's never enough that can be done because the need is so big, with so many people being refugees right now. And of course, the main thought is the despair on my side is, how come that the global community is not able to do anything about the root causes of this conflict? Thinking about Syria, for instance. I mean, where does Daesh or ISIS, where do they get the trucks from, all those Toyotas that I always have? I mean, the streams of money and weapon. Obviously, some people are earning this, so that's what needs to be done in the first place, of course. But then when it comes to how to help, because I think a red thread has been throughout this, speaking about psychosocial help, is of course it's in a sense a help also for self-help. Of course, we have had that concept for a long time, saying the best help is help for self-help, and I think that's what you're aiming at. And then also I think it's important for us to realize that these people, and that's something that I think is very obvious in this movie, these are just ordinary people in very extraordinary circumstances, but they are people, they are human beings with all their strengths and weaknesses. I think sometimes we construct this, especially when they come to Sweden, somewhere in our brain it says, okay, if we are good to people, the people are better good to us as well, and they're grateful and friendly, and if they are difficult and not immediately grateful, we feel sort of deceived in our noble cause. But realizing that these people, of course, are people like us, and of course, in the situation that Mikael was describing, they are living tight together, and they're living together with neighbors that they haven't chosen, and some of the tensions that were the reason for them to become refugees in the first place, they are sort of rediscovered here in the new environment. All this complicated stuff, I think we need to make it part of the realistic picture in order to cultivate a realistic hope in how we are going to cope with this. And also, I think, to resist in this the political exploitation of these tensions that we are seeing in our country very, very clearly, and counteracting it. I'm just spent the day together with the Christian Council of Sweden, and one of the things we discussed was actually an initiative to have ecumenically people from different Christian churches, communities in this country, being volunteering at these asylum facilities to accompany people, to be a presence there, also to sort of mitigate tensions that might have a religious connotation, just in order to facilitate also some kind of social cohesion in this very unnormal circumstances. That was probably not a real good answer, but something like this.
I think it's very important to try to basically see, as you said, the root cause, and that there are people who really would like or are exploiting the situation, which could be deeply, deeply dangerous. So thank you, Antje, for lifting that. I think we're coming towards the end, so I'd like to kind of ask, you can go like this. And they can say your ending, because I'm thinking by also raising our view into the future, what hope also do you see in all of the challenges that our world is facing at the moment, with many people not being able to live in their own countries because of war, conflict?
Yeah, actually, if I want to take it from political view, I don't have any hope. So I'm Syrian. So, but I can answer from a humanitarian perspective. Like in Sweden, there's a lot of good work in the local level. Actually, we need to have more cooperation on the national level, because almost like Svenska, kyrkan and Röda Korset volunteers, they work together all the time, and they have a great relation with the owners of the accommodation centers and the staff in Migrationsverket. So we need more advocacy, because now Migrationsverket providing the basic needs, but actually what we are doing as organizations is to include the psychosocial support concept in it. There's some simple things like the bike here, but it's like more simple we can start with, and we already done that, like distribute clothes. That's the first step all Swedish do for asylum seekers when they arrive to accommodation centers. And our simple tip when it's come to psychosocial support, we say give it to the parents, not to the children directly, because we need to keep their normal roles in the life. They are parents, and usually they help their children. And that's what we are trying, from these simple actions to really advance how to help them to integrate and to real life again, let's say. So the last point is about the new law, the new proposed law. I think we'll have more challenges. I'm sorry to say that, but it's maybe clear for everybody. That's it's like usually part of the hope that you will have an open time, and you will design your life, and you will like survive. But now maybe you will not be able to see your family. It's like limited time, so you'll not have the same hope to really like study Swedish. Maybe we do a lot of these activities, or to build these integration steps for yourself. So we will face more challenges, but also we are having better response together as organizations. But that will not be a solution, of course, because the solution is political solution, humanitarian support maybe, but it's the war and the conflicts. So it's not between our hands.
Thank you so much. The law proposal is actually to limit the possibility for asylum seekers to bring their families here. Among other things, this law is limiting the possibilities for asylum seekers. And many comments have been that it will also make it more difficult with integration, of course, as you still have your family somewhere else if they can't be able to come to Sweden. Andy, please.
Thank you. For me, I want to zoom into my role and what I see from that perspective. But I sympathize with the Turkish, with the Syrian issue and the issue in Iraq when it comes to people being displaced. I myself have worked in Iraq and have witnessed a lot in the camps. So that it doesn't feel I don't have sympathy for this. I do have a real one. Back to the roles and what we do with regards to psychosocial support, I do see hope because it's being picked up and it's gaining momentum, and it's no longer second priority. And that's because many agencies and many actors have worked a lot. Among them, Church of Sweden comes first. Also, it's a lead agency in ACT Alliance. when it comes to psychosocial support. And also when I take myself apart from that, I see all of you here sitting down and listening to this. You watch the movie. You are here because you are concerned about these people, and these people need help. But as you see, even in this difficult situation, they help themselves. They don't just sit and wait for someone. And you heard Uncle Amos saying that we are not going to live on UNHCR the rest of our lives. Life may change and we need to get education. Otherwise, we will live an obedient life. So that shows that these people think they want to do something, they want to move on, even if the situation is so difficult. And for that, you're here. That means we are taking this issue serious and people are really concerned.
Thank you.
And I appreciate that you have taken this initiative yourself. Even the questions that you are asking, it shows what you're thinking, you know. So I do have a big hope.
Thank you. I know the Archbishop needs to move on, so Mikael, would you please make a short statement about the hope that you carry within you?
I'll try. That'll be the first time. Very shortly then, I think what is a very important component here is the resettlement or the quota system, because that is really targeting the weakest persons, the people that cannot move. There is some kind of a refugee Darwinism. People that have resources, they can get on the move. Could be money, it could be mindset, could be anything. But we do have people that are stuck in the camps. Just briefly on your question about Denmark, well, we have many role models, and we can do better. But we have to understand that Denmark, they only take about 3,000 people every year, except for last year. So it's very difficult. And if I just may leave you with 1 minute about Denmark and the resettlement system, I can just take you back to when I was in a refugee camp on the border to the Democratic Republic of Congo, the DRC, or the not-so-Democratic Republic of Congo, as it should be called. And they asked me, when I was in the camp, they said, you want to go over to meet the people at the DRC? And I go, it's a civil war. Can we go to meet them? Should we? Is it safe? What kind of security we will have? And I asked all kinds of questions, and I was very scared. And then they said, why is this Swede so very afraid of the DRC, the Danish Refugee Council? Which is a very formidable Danish organization. So they do a lot of good also in the resettlement area, but not very much else, I would say.
Thank you, Mikael. I want to let the Archbishop close this for us now. You want to say, okay, yes.
2 quick points, actually, regarding to the hope.
Yes.
First, like the hope is a lot of local initiatives from asylum seekers themselves and the great cooperation with the local communities. So you have a lot of good, like, success stories you can see as models. And the personal hope I'd like to share with you. First, did you see this before?
No.
Okay, it's a can, and the word is Swedish air, and there's a real Swedish air inside it. You can find it in Central Station and in the airport, and you can buy it as a souvenir. When I arrived for the first time to Sweden, that's December 2013, I saw this, and I felt that I want similar but from Syrian air. And after that I traveled many times in different missions, and the last time I were in Turkey before the visas, and then I saw it again, and I felt that I need both Swedish and Syrian air.
Oh, thank you.
So it's like hope. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, it really is about hope, and hope most of the time, very often, hope starts from the right words, from the right story. I mean, in a sense, this film was a story of hope, of realistic hope. Not neglecting the difficulties, but showing that there is, more under the surface if you care about scratching the surface. And I think that applies to our context here as well. We all share a responsibility in telling true, good, and beautiful stories. Not made beautiful, but really the beautiful stories that emerge wherever human beings are respected, where human beings get the opportunity to show what's in them, to show that healing is possible, and that even a wounded person can be a healer. Now you see, most of us have some kind of connection to the Christian tradition, either as being Christians or knowing about Christianity. The center of Christianity is a wounded healer. When Jesus had died and became alive again, and his friends didn't really recognize him first. How did they recognize him? They didn't recognize him for his splendor. They recognized him for his wounds. And that's why they say about Jesus not only that he is the Son of God, but they also say about him, see the human being. And if we can do this for each other and for other people, then there is a reason for hope. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and thank you to all of you.